It's looking doubtful by the minute. And I think this is fascinating here because the last 48 hours in Europe have been one where Europe has actually shown a very rare show of unity, especially between France and Germany. The idea that they were really backing Ursula von der Leyen to make this deal. I thought the quote of the day from her was, "This is the best offer we could get, the best deal we could get." Yeah. And they basically settled from 15%. They came out swinging, wanting 0 for 0, and are now getting 15%. But at the core of it, it really comes down to just each country wanting to push for their own agenda.
Everyone reaffirms. Paul Donovan, UBS, thank you for reaffirming this morning. A tariff is a tax on somebody. On the Krugman would say, yeah, there's a deadweight loss, but it's a tax on the American consumer. It's a tax on American business. A given Mercedes, Kriti, the German Association of Automotive Industry, this is CNBC, thank you to Kelly Evans and the Death Star for this. Kriti, the basic idea here is a 15% tariff on Mercedes will cost German auto companies billions annually. Is that off the mark?
It's not off the mark at all, because not only are they dealing with the tariff threat, they're also dealing with an overcapacity threat from China as well. And if there was a rare share of unity between France and Germany in terms of backing the likes of Ursula von der Leyen, there was also a rare show of unity between Ursula von der Leyen and Donald Trump in terms of saying some very key words, which they addressed the concern of overcapacity, which they didn't name it, but it is kind of a veiled pointing to China ultimately. So when we're talking about the car sector, that's really where Germany is feeling the heat, not just in Mercedes, but also because they're trying to subsidize or at least help and rescue their car industry by leaning into defense. The problem with this trade deal is that it relies on the European military spend to be spent on American defense, not the German Rheinmetall, Hensoldt, Saab, etc.
Kriti, what's the sense around Europe this morning as to, boy, did the European Union just cave to the U.S. here? There didn't seem to be much of a fight put up by the EU. And I know, European Commissioner Ursula von der Leyen is saying, hey, this is stability. This is predictability. That has value. But was it a cave?
Geopolitically, it was absolutely a cave, no question about it, given that from the beginning they said it was 0 or nothing. They were also pushing back on a lot of French forces. Emmanuel Macron and some of his officers have been very vocal about using the anti-coercion tool, to taking the Chinese approach, which is matching each tariff eye for eye. The problem with that is the European economy just isn't that of China. They don't have the fiscal spend. They don't have the mobility. They don't have the companies and the national champions that the U.S. and China does. That being said, 15% is considered a win. You can see that in the European markets today, because largely these markets, the Stoxx 600, had already priced in anywhere between 10 to 15%, depending on who you ask.
This is Friday, folks. Seems ages ago. It was 3 days ago. The Japan Times came out with a government, clearly a government-derived quote, saying the Japan deal of X number of days ago, Kriti, is basically up to the private corporations of Japan to fund businesses in the U.S. Do you sense we're going to get the same thing from Brussels, where they're going to say, yeah, we're going to invest in the United States, but it's up to Siemens of Germany?
The deal is identical, which is crazy because these are two completely different geographies. We had a guest on the show today talk to us about calling Japan the banker to the United States. And I think that's what's really key about this investment promise. $550 billion on top of existing expenditures from Japan, the majority of which are loans to the United States. It's unclear whether that's to the government, to corporations, to the people, or even just more buying of treasuries, unclear on that. Whereas if you're using the same model for Europe, for example, it's not the same thing, because they're knocking on a door that provides likes of LNG.
I know you're living in Europe now, Kriti, so you're going to take all of August off, unlike us idiot Americans. But Kriti, before you go on your 30-day, 32-day holiday, I mean, when I look at this, where are we August 15th or September 15th? August 1 date, lots of handshakes, everything's a massive deal, with so much winning going on. Where are we September 15th?
September 15th, our focus is on 3 countries that are outside of Europe, and even the Europeans are watching this. The relationship between Canada and Mexico, that was the answer we're expected to get this week, but also China. The expectation in Stockholm right now is simply that a win in Stockholm between the U.S. and China would simply be kicking the can down the road. So if in September 15th, U.S. and Chinese officials are still talking, that is considered a win by probably every country in the world right now.